Howdy y'all, and welcome to episode 16. Gonna try out some different stuff today. Hopefully the audio is a lot better. I got a tip that I should record with Audacity so I could go in and clean it up. So I'm gonna try that out on this video right here and see how that works. Oh shoot, let's go to peaceful here. Alright, in a little different area today. We're in just a test world, just a flat test world. And we're going to go over some of the power options that are available in the FTB pack. Looking around, different videos. Some people seem like they're struggling with power. So we're going to go over all the different types of power available to you from just starting out to the very end. So what I've got lined up here is all the available engines, some of the ways you can use them, and both these are all the MJ engines, and these are all the EU engines. So we'll start with the Minecraft Joules. I think that's what they stand for. The MJs, the Michael Jacksons. Because this seems most items in the game or in the mod pack really do use MJs. The EUs, or the industrial craft kind of power, is limited, though it does have its uses. So we'll start with this because this is probably the most prolific throughout the pack. What I've got here is each engine and their fuel outputs. Now these first two are in the actual Buildcraft. These are the Buildcraft engines. We've got our Stirling engine, very simple to make. Now I'm not going to go over any of the recipes for this just because they're all in NEI and you can see it. But the Stirling engine, very cheap, stone and wood, maybe a little iron for a piston, very cheap, but doesn't have a lot of power. As you can see, it outputs 1 MJ a tick. And it requires coal or something that will burn. Not a bad starter engine. Now I've got these lined up over here, so you can see different ways that you can kind of stack them all together to get more power out of them. Again, not a bad engine to start with. They're very cheap, low maintenance as far as long as they're feeding power to something, they're not going to blow up. Your problem will be is if you use these and just run them with power not going anything, they will overheat and explode. So you can see right here, you can kind of stack them straight up like this if you don't have the piping for it, or you can do it like this if you have enough conduit or pipe, and you're going to get the same effect either way. I'm not going to spend the time, but I tested that myself with the multimeter, and you get your output into the redstone cell here is exactly the same on both of those. This is using the Buildcraft pipes. I would suggest staying away from these if you can. If you can get the conduits, I would use the conduits. The problems with these pipes, unless you remove it in the configuration file, if you turn these on and let it run and this machine over here is full, power will build up in these pipes and they will eventually explode. That will probably happen before the engines actually overheat, and you will see it, but if you're not paying attention, I wouldn't suggest these pipes any longer you need to. And if you are going to use these pipes, I would make sure that you are only putting out as much energy as you are using. So say here we have a thermal expansion powered furnace, and its maximum power input is 2 MJ. So my suggestion, if you're going to use a setup like this when you first start, is to individually power these. Don't put them all together like this. Just put a lever on each one of these so you can turn just 2 on. That will give this the power it needs. And that goes also for this combustion engine. Now, combustion engines are the upper tier of the Buildcraft engines. You have the Redstone engine, which of course really isn't good for anything, but then you have the Stirling engine, and then you have the combustion engine here. Now, the combustion engine requires that you input water and fuel, or you can use lava, oil, and then of course fuel. Now, fuel of course requires refinement before you can use it, so that's an extra step. So this is, you know, a higher tier sort of power source, just for the fact that to get the full benefit of this engine, you have got prior steps. I mean, you've got to go out and find the oil, you got to pump it up, then you have to refine it into fuel. Now we'll also run just plain oil at a half MJ. So it's only going to do 3 MJ instead of 6. Or you can just, if you have just crazy amount of lava, you can use lava in here. But I wouldn't suggest that, because if you have that much lava, there's better options. Here we get into some forestry engines. First one, of course, is the peat engine, and this is a 1 MJ a tick. I don't like this engine. It's just real slow. Requires that you have a peat bog, which is real slow, and it outputs ash. So you've got to you have to have a way to deal with the ash that comes out of this. They're cheap. They're easy to make. I'm not going to say don't use them if that's the route you want to go. Me personally, I don't use these. I did use them once just to see how they would work. Back in the like 1.25 days, I just never liked those. Now the biogas engine is a little bit different. It's also a forestry engine. It's your upgrade from the peat engine, and this one's a lot better, and it runs just about on anything. It even runs on water. You can get a 1 MJ a tick off of water or milk. I don't know who would have that much milk, but or seed oil, which is actually pretty tough to get. I think biomass is easier to get than seed oil in large amounts. And off of biomass, it is almost as good as the combustion engine. The only thing it needs here is it needs some lava in here until it warms up. Now, it does not need a constant supply of lava. Once it is warmed up, it will no longer use lava. The only time you're going to use the lava is when you first start the engine up until it gets to heat. And then the last engine, of course, is the electrical engine. By default, just sitting straight like this, it is a 2 MJ engine output. Now, of course, this is kind of a converter engine. This takes EU, the IC2 power, and converts it into MJs. Now, this is kind of a cool engine. It has its uses and it has its benefits, especially once you get up into the range where you can produce the high voltage solar panels or medium voltage. These are really nice because with the circuit boards, you can actually upgrade these to get about 14, I think, around 14 MJ a tick with the right tubes put in there. But if even so, just the 2 megajoules, or I'm sorry, not Minecraft MJs are not bad for running farms with solar panels, things like that. Now, of course, it's going to use a lot of the EU to convert over to the MJs. Now we're getting over into our thermal expansion engines. It has 2. It has the steam engine, and this one requires water and fuel, coal, something that will burn in there, and it produces 2 MJ a tick. Then we have our magmatic engine. Now you have to pump this water in with the pipe, so you do need to make like an aqueous accumulator and then pipe that into the engine. But it's not bad. It's very stable. Will not blow up. If it overheats, gets overworked, you can just whack it with a wrench, Like if it stops, you can just come up and whack it, and it'll start back up again. Same thing with the magmatic engine. If it overheats, if you're powering something and it just kind of stops, does not explode, it'll just stop, and then you just come up and whack it, and it'll start again. This one takes lava. If you've got a good lava source, and you can get it easily to these engines, if you're up in the Tesseract range and you're able to make those, decent engine. You can link these, put them in a line like that. However you want to do it, they're a good, solid engine to use. For me, they're kind of a starter engine. They were easier to make. I think they're a little bit harder now because they do take that MVAR or whatever. Now, my favorite starting engine, just because you can use it later, is the hobbyist steam engine. Now, this one also takes water and fuel to produce steam, and then this steam is what kind of powers everything. Now, this only does 2 Minecraft joules, but the benefit of this is when you do get up into the boiler stage, which we'll go over in here in just a minute, you can use these without having to worry about the fuel at that point. You just still need to, well, you won't need the water or the fuel anymore. Once you get it to the boiler age, you can just slap this on a boiler and the steam will power it. Okay, I don't have this marked because I was actually going to leave this one out, but since it does produce MJs, this is the Bluetricity motor with red power. I don't recommend these things. To power them, it's really difficult to get the max out of these things. I have a setup in my main world, which I'll show later, that is 2 of the higher end windmills with 16 solar panels, and I'm not getting, this thing should get up to about, I think the max is 50 MJ a tick on these things if they're fully powered. They're not adjustable. They'll just ramp up to whatever device it's hooked up to needs. It'll do that. I have never gotten this thing to work where I'm satisfied with it. And I'll show you my setup on my. I was tinkering around. I was watching I think it was his name, Odadex, and he's one of the reasons I'm kind of making this video, because he has got these vast arrays of all these things, and power is something that for me in the game is one of the first things that I deal with, and then I get that taken care of, and then the other projects are a lot easier if you have a good, stable, strong power source. So let's talk about the good, strong power sources. These are our boilers, and these are multi-purpose. These really are. They have, as far as I'm concerned, this is in-game power. Once you have a good one of these, you're pretty much set. The first thing that I work towards is a solid fuel, low pressure boiler. Pretty easy to make. The resources aren't too bad. The amount of iron that it takes, I think they actually lowered it not too long ago. So these aren't bad, and this will hold. To start with, you can put there are higher versions, which I did not show on here, but there are higher versions of the engines. So if we look at, there's 2 different types of engines. There's the industrial, which this one outputs 4 MJ a tick, and this boiler will hold 8 of those. Okay. Then you've got the industrial. Wait, that's commercial. This one's the industrial. The industrial will output 8. The lighter one there, that one's made out of iron. Of course, this one is made out of steel. So you'll have to have a blast furnace going to make that, at least in the Direwolf pack. This will hold 8 also of these. So you're going to get 64 a tick off of the solid fuel low pressure boiler. What I will normally do is I will get a Steve's Cart going, Steve's Cart tree farm going just as soon as I can. And that wood is then all turned into charcoal. Now the charcoal is a great early on fuel source. You can use it for everything. And Steve's Cart Tree Farm will just kick that stuff out, pretty much fuel itself, and it will make your early power needs just go away if you can get this together and even slap on the lower tier 4. You could probably even get a quarry up and running very quickly with this right here. You're not going to run it at max, but if you can get you'll get it going pretty good. It'll go quick. Now this is a solid fuel high pressure boiler. The only difference between these two is this is double the pressure of this one. So now, in layman's terms, not even layman's terms, just to make it easy to understand, is you can put 8 engines on this. Well, 9, I'm sorry. You can put 9 engines on this. You can put 18 on this one. Okay? Say 9 on this one, 18 on this one. So you're doubling up the amount of engines, but you're also going to double up on your fuel cost. With a low pressure boiler, once it's up to temperature, you can send a log over to it. The way I would normally hook it up is I send one log every 10 seconds from my tree farm over to the boiler. What I do is I have a powered furnace powered by one of the hobbyist steam engines just parked right next to this with a couple of 2 or 3 hoppers on it, and the wood just feeds down, and as soon as it turns into coal, it's stuck directly into the furnace here. So eventually, once you get the Steve's cart and everything running, it will just pump wood directly over here, turn into coal. No piping needed at that point, and the powered furnace will put it directly into your fuel box. And that will also work here, but you're doubling the amount of wood you need. And I'm not gonna lie, I did this once. I powered this with a not a very big farm. It wasn't maybe 10 blocks, 15 blocks long, and it powered a solid fuel high pressure boiler, but it took 1 wood every 5 seconds to keep it fueled. It didn't have a problem doing it. It's just kind of annoying. I think the liquid ones are a lot easier to use. So we're over here, and it's the exact same thing, but you're going to use liquid fuels here. Biomass, fuel, oil. Lava will work here, lava buckets, but lava will not work here in the liquid fuel. The 2 best fuels to use for the liquid fuels are biofuel, which is made from biomass, or fuel. I have one high pressure on my regular world running biofuel, and I have another one running on fuel using bee oil. And these are your easiest probably to maintain. Once you get one of these set up with a good fuel source, and it's a good reliable fuel source, it will just kind of take care of itself, and you can just reap the benefits of the power. Over here is my typical setup. How I have my boiler set up is I have a high pressure boiler, and then of course I have 8 of the 8 MJ Attic engines on each side. You can put 2 more, because like I said, it will take 18. Just for aesthetics though, I normally will just leave it like this. I do have one that I use. The fuel one that I use has 18 on it. And this is the easiest way to do this, just because the switches are all here, right here in the middle, and if I need to, for whatever reason, downgrade the amount of power I'm putting out. And the only reason I would do that is if I was using the Buildcraft piping. The way I look at it is whether or not I have these on or off. This thing is still using fuel, regardless. So I just leave them on and I use the conduits, so nothing is going to blow up. These don't blow up. They just let it run and absorb the power, and no problem. And you can feed a quarry through a test rack through one of these at full speed. It will just fly. You'll do a 64 by 64 in minutes. Scratching my ear there. Itchy, itchy ears. Okay, so let's run over and let's take a look at some of the EU power generation that we have. And of course, we're starting at the very lowest here, and this is just a generator. This is just a furnace, machine block made out of refined iron, and a rechargeable battery. Very simple to make. Will burn off of anything that will burn in a furnace, I'm pretty sure. You can use blaze rods, coal coke, coal, charcoal, wood, anything will burn in there, just like pretty much like a furnace. And it will output 10 EU a tick. If you go back a couple of videos for me, you'll see where I use 10 of these to kind of put together a little charging station for my modular power suits. They're not bad. I mean, they well, like I said, they will burn anything. So anything you have in excess and don't know what else to do with it, you can always generate power with it. Now, this is your geothermal generator. These burn lava. This is the highest producing EU generator other than a nuclear reactor. I am not going to go over those here because I have just not messed with one since the E2 days, or equivalent exchange 2 days, where you could do the single-use coolant reactors where you could pump them full of ice. When they changed it over to you couldn't use ice anymore, I just stayed away from them. I don't want to try to come up with a pattern, and I may mess with them one day just to mess with them, but they just don't if they still produced 1200 1500 EU a tick like the old ones did, even with the new reactor plating and all that, I might use them, but their power output is so low now that it's just not worth the hassle of messing with them. Then you get into your solar panels. Straight IC2 only comes with solar panels, which produce like 1 EU a tick. Then you can, but the Direwolf pack, of course, comes with compact solar panels, which upgrades for every 8 panels you have, you go up a level. So if you have 8 regular solar panels, that will give you a low voltage. 8 low voltage will give you 1 medium voltage. 8 medium voltage will give you 1 high power, or high voltage. And this one, the highest voltage one here, is the highest producing solar panel. It produces 512 a tick. If you do use the high voltage, and you can plug this directly into an MFSU easily, no problems, but of course coming out of there you'll have to downgrade that voltage depending on how you have your machine set up with transformers and that sort of thing. And lastly, we're at the bio engine, or bio generator. I use these all the time. These are very simple to set up. They run off of biofuel. They don't need any water or anything, just biofuel, and they output EU. This is a forestry item, the bio generator. These produce 16 EU a tick. I don't know if they run on biomass or not. They may actually run on biomass now, but these produce, I think they only do 8 EU if they're on biomass. But I know on biofuel they do 16 a tick. Yeah. And you just pump it straight in there and then it comes out. You can just run your copper, fiber, whatever you want out of this into your devices. Very easy to set up, low maintenance, doesn't take a lot of extra stuff. If you're already producing biofuel, this is definitely a good option. Their recipe is not very hard. The resources are not prohibitive, so they're not a bad EU solution. In fact, if you can mix, like what I've done is I have about 6 of these, and then I have a medium voltage panel to go along with it, just to supplement the power. Because like I said, you don't use EU in this game like you do the MJs. You just don't use it as often. And the good thing about most of these engines, some of the forestry stuff, like the thermal thermal whatchamajigger thing there. What's that called? Thermal something? Thermal, if I can spell it. Thermionic fabricator. This thing right there constantly drains power from your system. There is no way that I know of to shut it off other than shutting off the conduit underneath it. It just will constantly run, and I think that's because it's constantly keeping the molten glass hot. But this thing is always on, never shuts off, and that is a constant drain on your system. These things, since we don't have the advanced machines in this game, with the exception of the induction furnace, there's no items that really stay on nor that you need to leave on. The induction furnace, to get the most benefit from it, you kind of need to leave it heated. You need to heat it up and leave it on, or keep a redstone signal on it so it will stay at temperature. If not, you'll have to turn it on or put something in there and wait for it to heat up to get the most benefit out of it. I actually just switched. I just did some changes, which I may show in a future episode, to my kind of machine room there, and downgraded to a regular furnace just so I could add a transformer on it and then overclock it. And I was actually getting and it would shut off when it wasn't working. So I was actually using fuel to just keep it up to heat, which I didn't want to do. But once you overclock your IC2 machines, they'll run pretty good. You just have to give them the upgrades. But of course, with the upgrades comes more fuel. So these are the available power options in the game right now. So as soon as I come back, what we'll do is we'll go over to we'll come back into my actual game world, and I will show you how I have these set up. I believe I've already shown them, but we'll go over them again in a little bit more detail of the setup that I actually use in the real game. And these are not bad solutions. Most of these, however, I would not use once you get to the level that resources are less of an issue. Most of these are higher maintenance. They have possibilities to explode, especially your Buildcraft engines can explode. Most of these will not. A boiler will explode, and it will leave a huge crater if you do not supply it with water, or you run out of fuel and don't let it cool down before you. Or let me see, if it runs out of water and then you put water back in and it's still hot, then it'll explode. So you always want to make sure these have good sources of water. But an aqueous accumulator and right next to it, pumping water into it, as long as you don't have a glitch in your game world, should not be an issue. I've not had one explode, but I have seen what they do when they explode. So when we come back after the cut, we will be in the game world, and we'll see these, well, at least these in use. So we will see you then. Okay, here we are back in the game world. Here is our first major power generator. In fact, this is probably the most that I have, the biggest one that I have in this world. This one uses the full 18 engines and is powered by fuel. This fuel is made by distilled bees, which make oily combs, which are turned into oil, which is then turned into fuel. As you can see, this one runs pretty much most of my machines here, and it also is hooked into a tesseract, which then is okay, let me turn this on. Then powers the sugarcane farm over there. Now, a sugarcane farm is then processed into biofuel, and it produces, or it goes to a liquid fuel boiler over there, which powers all the bee machines, I guess, the genetic machines. And then is also pumped over here, which I was showing you before, is the bio generators. It flows into, now this was all fueled to begin with. This area right here where it's grass, this was my Steve's Cart tree farm. This is as big as it was to supply that boiler right there with charcoal. There was enough wood coming out of this little area, this little plot right here, to keep that fueled as a high pressure boiler. So here we have the, like I said, I have 6 biogenerators that's fueled from that sugar cane over there. And since I have all these things overclocked and it's pulling just shy of, it's pulling just a hair over 100 EU a tick when everything's running in there. I also slapped on a medium voltage solar panel next to it. And then it runs over here. And you'll see there's no low voltage transformers or anything because all that is internal on the machines that are in here. The last time I showed this room, I wasn't using these too much. I was pretty much staying with the thermal expansion machines. But they're so slow. They're great the way they all connect, and you don't need pipes or anything, but their processing speed, if I want to do 10 stacks of iron or gold or anything, it just takes forever. The IC2 machines are a lot faster. I'm not using the induction furnace right now. Like I said, this is the one that if I were to flip this on, this would begin to heat up, but to maintain that heat, it would constantly draw power, which means it would constantly use fuel. All these have transformer upgrades. I'm probably going to put another one on there and then upgrade that to an MFSU out there, because right now it's only an MFE. And all that is supplied by that sugarcane field and that small solar panel out there. I only added the solar panel because these 6 only produce about a 96 EU a tick. I had an extra medium voltage laying around, so instead of adding more engines, I just went ahead and slapped that there to kind of bolster that power a little bit. Okay, let's look at the. This is a red power setup. Now, I don't like these. I tried using them early on in the game. You know, I had a pretty large flax farm, and you know, red power had just come back out, and I was like, cool, and I'm just not thrilled with it. It's just, I don't have it turned on right now. This thing should be at max power, kicking out about 50 EU a tick, and it just does not. You can see it's just so slow. It'll do 50 to start. When it first turns on, it'll do about 50, and then this will go down, and this will drain this battery pretty quick. I could not get it to do anything running power straight to the generator. I just wasn't getting anything out of it, so you kind of have to have it on the battery. But I'm only getting about, once this thing gets going and it runs for a little bit, it goes down to about 20 a tick, if that. That's what, at least what it says when I put a multimeter on it. It says it's requesting 20 a tick average, but if you're looking in here, that's how fast it's moving. I can fill a I'll just show you. I'm gonna break this. This one's full, so I'm gonna break this so it'll empty, and we're gonna put it back down. And then you can just see how quickly this thing fills up. You can just look how that's getting 144 MJ a tick. So very quickly that is going to fill up. This thing over here, it will take all day. I mean, you just see how slowly it's going. So if this, even though the multimeter is telling me that it's getting 30 MJ a tick right here, I don't believe it. I don't think it's maybe a second, but not a tick. And there's what 20 ticks in a second, something like that. Now, one thing, if you do go through this is the higher voltage, like the 10K something or other voltage with transformers on either side. I tried this with just bluetricity wire first, and then I used this. I didn't see any difference at all. Actually, this thing is more of a pain in the ass than just the bluetricity wire. Because if I let this run for a while, then turn it off, I think because it's sitting power down, and there's something to do with power equalization, your battery will actually drain until this stabilizes a little bit. So, I'm just not digging the red power. I just don't think it's the blue electric type power is just not set up to run these machines the same way that IC2 and Buildcraft machinery works. So I'm going to avoid that. I will tear that down and put that away. I only left that up to kind of show everybody typical setup. That's at cloud level right there. The clouds kind of are just at the base of that. So that's pretty high. There's no obstructions. It doesn't really kick into super high speed except at night, and it goes faster at night for some reason. And if you get a storm, you'll really see them turning. But I don't want to have to count on a storm just to starting to go down. And you can just see how slow that's moved. You can see how slow that one's moved right there since we looked at it. And it was already some in it. And then we can come over here and look at this one and see it's already half full from empty. So definitely a different animal. And then of course I use the solar panels here. And if you go back a couple episodes, you can look at the generator setup that I used at the remote site. So that's our video for today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, and this video helped you out at all in making decisions on your power use in the FTB or Direwolf mod pack, drop me a comment. Let me know. Give me a like. I would certainly appreciate it. And I hope the audio quality is a lot better this time. So until next time, I will see y'all later.